During your travels out here in Skyrim, there's a lot of things that you gotta look out for. Getting mauled by bears, stabbed by some bandits who are just looking for some extra coin, or my personal favorite, all these examples are good ways to die out here, and there's plenty of other opportunities to punch your card early. Just a sec, my flight's about to land. Now, it seems like my journey has come to an end here. So what's next? Well, that's the topic of today's video. There's plenty of afterlives in the Elder Scrolls, and I've decided to discuss them with you so that next time you boot up your save, you know exactly what to expect when your time comes to meet the gods. Atheras is believed to be the origin of all magic within the universe. When you look up at the night sky, it's said that every flicker of light you see is not a star, but a pinhole poked into our realm from which Atheras shines its light on the other side. There's also a phenomenon known as ethereal fragments that often become dislodged and fall to Nirn, which if you're new is basically the Skyrim word for Earth, and these fragments are commonly accepted as shooting stars to the mortals. Besides those little fun facts, Atheras comes into play for some races and lifestyles. Some paths don't lead to any specific afterlife. In that case, they're sent to Atheras, which is a plane of existence where the Aedra are believed to reside in. But there are some afterlives within Atheras. A couple examples being the Far Shores, which is the afterlife of the Red Guards, and the Khajiit have an afterlife there known as the Sands Behind the Stars. We'll talk more about these later. And these afterlives are not necessarily exclusive to these races, but more so exclusive to their beliefs, their choices during life, and the manner of their death. Now let's talk about the other side of the coin. Oblivion holds many realms, including the Orcs' Ash Pit and Cold Harbor, which is the final resting place of the vampires. We'll talk more about that later too. I'm not going to get too deep into Oblivion because during my research, I actually found out that there's 17 major planes of Oblivion, and I feel like that could be a good video on its own. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. But for now, we are going to just move on to the more specific afterlives, starting with the Nords. One we've all heard of, at least in passing, Sovngarde is the final resting place of Nords who have proven themselves in battle. And this is completely unrelated to the type of life they chose to live. From the most hardened criminal to the most loyal Stormcloak, a Nord's life pales in comparison to the matter of his death. As long as they die in glorious battle, they will always awaken in Sovngarde. In order to reach the Hall of Valor, which is the massive mead hall in which the warriors who've proven themselves enjoy an endless celebration, you must approach soon the Guardian of the Whalebone Bridge that leads to the Hall of Valor, and you must either once again prove yourself in battle and defeat soon, or have direct permission to cross the bridge from Shore, the chief of gods and the creator of Sovngarde. It is described that in the Hall of Valor there is an endless flow of mead, food, and revelry where you can easily forget the pain of the way you met your fate by drinking, eating, and competing with your fellow fallen Nords in challenges of strength and prowess. However, though it might sound glorious, it's also said to be true that Alduin feeds on the souls of the dead in Sovngarde, so just keep a lookout for that, I guess. The Ashen Forge is a testament to the strength of the Orcs. You thought they were hardcore before? Wait till you hear about where they go when they die. For the Orcs who revere Malakath, the Daedric prince of lies, deception, and hypocrisy, and live by his code that is morally acceptable despite many exceptions and loopholes that allow bad deeds to take place, a faithful Orc will be sent to the Ashen Forge in the realm of Malakath known as the Ash Pit, a land described as being nothing but dust, smoke, and ash. Like my lungs. Now that may not sound like much fun to look forward to an eternity of, and yet followers of Malakath still believe that the bleak emptiness of this realm contains all they need to enhance their immortal existence. They also believe that in the Ash Pit, every Orc is a chief, every chief has 1,000 wives, and every wife has 1,000 slaves to cater to their every need. It's also similar to Sovngarde in a way that the food and drink is limitless, and there's plenty of battle to be had for the Orcs that still have some fight left in them. And though this realm is both described as unending emptiness and a land of luxury, Malakath's faithful followers still believe that they will be rewarded for their loyalty in life. But again, we are talking about the Daedric prince of lies, deception, and hypocrisy. So where do you think the Orcs go when they die? I personally wouldn't risk it. The Bretons are simple people. Believing themselves to be the most faithful in Tamriel, they worship the 9 divines, or 8 depending on what century. However, they do have one god they hold on a higher pedestal, being Arche, the god of life and death. The Bretons believe that Arche commands the souls of the deceased to the realm of Atheras, where they can meet their gods and ancestors. Now, to be honest, the Bretons aren't very interesting beyond that, but they do also believe that Arche, as the god of the cycle of birth and death, spends eternity making sure that deaths and births stay in balance within the mortal plane. And that's about it. So let's talk about some people that are a little slimier. So I was a bit shocked to read that the Hist is both the most detailed and the least detailed afterlife I've read so far. Let me explain. The Hist are a sacred type of tree that grows in the deepest parts of the Black Marsh, which is where the Argonians are from. The Argonians have been known to have deep connections with these trees, calling themselves people of the root. There are also claims that these Hist trees are in fact living sentient beings that are more ancient than any other life form on the mortal plane. Now this is interesting, and it's just a scratch on the surface of the Argonian lore. But their afterlife is a very simple branch of it. Did you like that pun? When an Argonian dies, they must be returned to the marsh and buried in the swamp in order for their life force to return to the Hist so that they can be reincarnated once more. So in a way, Argonians don't even have an afterlife. They just keep on jamming until one day Alduin ruins everything for everyone. We don't know when that'll be. So for now, let's just move on to the next afterlife. You're about to learn why we more commonly refer to the Altmer as High Elves. It is because the High Elves, similarly to Bretons, simply believe that after death they ascend to Atheras. The Altmer believe that mortal life is nothing more than a punishment, and while they do honor their ancestors, they only do so by respecting their passage from the mortal plane to Atheras. This is because High Elves believe it is cruel and unnatural to encourage spirits of the dead to stay in the mortal plane. As those who die in dishonor, their families will wipe away any traces of their existence, and they will be forgotten forever, which I'm sure we'd all agree would be a fate worse than death. The Wood Elves have one simple goal in life: follow the Green Pact. The Green Pact is essentially a deal the Dmer signed with, let me try my best here, Ifri? In this pact, there are a list of rules that every Wood Elf must follow to the letter if they want to ascend to Atheras and be with the gods. While similar to how the Orcs have the Code of Malakath, the Dmer have some slightly different rules to go by, such as attack anyone who wishes to do harm to the forest they live in, which they call the Green, and other pretty calm, reasonable rules to live by, such as living by a meat mandate clause in the Green Pact, in which Wood Elves cannibalize their own brethren and for a while would also eat the people they kill within 3 days. Talking about this has successfully made me hungry. And with a quick Google search of Skyrim Wood Elf Rule 34, a lot of you people seem to really like the Wood Elves. Well, guess what? They're cannibals and will absolutely eat you after they find out about the little drawings you made of them. And not the eat you that you're probably hoping for. Fucking sickos. The Red Guards believe in a god known as Tawaka. They believe that after death, Tawaka escorts them to the far shores. In life, a Red Guard may have made enemies who will in one way or another attempt to stop them from reaching the portal to the far shores, but Tawaka, as their guide, subverts all attempts and guides his loyal Red Guard to the afterlife every single time. The portal to the far shores is actually a real place too. It lies within a temple in Hammerfell known as the Hall of Heroes, which also houses the remains of a couple heroes of Red Guard history as well. The only other info I could find on the far shores was beliefs that there is no hunger or thirst, but plenty of challenges to keep one's fighting spirit alive. And the only hint as to how one earns their way into the far shores is this 3-year-old Reddit post from Gleaming Vale, who states, according to the dialogue from the Keeper of the Hall, the soul of dead mortals are supposed to go there, though not all find their way and not all belong. Heroes and great warriors often end up in the far shores, whereas mortals that are cruel or twisted are not invited to journey there. So it's kind of like Sovngarde, just maybe a little bit easier to get in, unless you're just stupid and bad with directions. So like, if you're heading there, text me when you get there. Simple enough, the Reachmen believe in reincarnation. Upon death, Nymira, the Daedric princess of hunger, also known as the goddess of the dark and mistress of decay, Nymira acts as a spiritual gatekeeper who gives and takes lives until their spirits are enlightened. To what level of enlightenment, I couldn't find an answer for, but I think their beliefs might be my favorite ones out of everything I've read so far because they're just good principles to live by. While the Reachmen do primarily worship Hircine, the Lord of the Hunt, also the Daedra involved in the Skyrim quest Ilmet Lit by Moonlight. Coolest name ever for a quest, right? It's just like so dark and mysterious. The Reachmen do not fear death, but understand the value of a fleeting life and believe that no matter the struggle, one should not go quietly into death. They also believe that everyone deserves to be able to die under the open sky instead of in darkness. This is because they believe their ancestors are watching from the sky and await reunion in which they can share stories from the battles they fought in life. They also believe that all death has a significance, no matter how big or small. And that's all real nice. But then why are Forsworn such assholes? They're Reachmen too. All right, moving on. Now with the Khajiit Afterlife, they basically have like a heaven and hell thing going on. The good place is the sands behind the stars, which is described as a paradise promised to the Khajiit as long as they've followed the true path of the moons. It is said to be a realm filled with dunes formed of sugar and a warmth without end. The bad place is known as the dark behind the world, also known as the scuttling void. Home to the goddess Nirn, which is the same one I just talked about with the Reachmen. Any and all mortals who become ensnared by Nirn in the scuttling void are tortured until they forget everything about who they once were and now only know Nirn. You know what this sounds like to me? We are Negan. Now real quick, I think it's time I bring up Lorcan. For those of you who don't know this deity, his name has come up in each of these afterlives every time and I've been trying to ignore it. But he played a bigger part in the Khajiit Afterlife. So if any of you would like to know more about Lorcan and how he ties into so much involving the Elder Scrolls universe, let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video covering him. This might sound confusing to people who don't know who I'm talking about, but believe me, there is a one big bad guy that we definitely haven't talked about on the channel yet. Dunmer, you probably know him as the Dark Elves, do not exactly have an afterlife because their beliefs simply do not see a distinction between life and death. They view the many planes of existence in this universe as not several different planes, but one plane altogether with several paths to take, believing all along that death is just another step in your journey through the universe. Now I'm reading this word from my script right now, and I can definitely say that this is my new favorite way to see the world, like the actual real life world. I mean, like, it could be a real life belief that bridges the gaps between the several religions of the real world. This is officially my request to all of you. Can we please make the Dunmer religion a real life thing? Smash like for the Dark Elf Society. I feel like the world would be a much more chill place with it. Now let's move on to the next afterlife. I've been putting off the Imperials because I find them so boring. I don't really know why. They're just so white bread. But when they die, they go to Atheras and they call Atheras heaven. Super compelling, right? Next afterlife. So, we good? Though it is unknown whether or not giants actually have an afterlife, they have places they make into burial grounds where they bring all their kin when they die. They won't guard or live near these burial grounds where most other races would. They just make use of them as they need them, and that's about it. And they're really mean. Vampires believe their souls are sent to Cold Harbor when they die. Cold Harbor is described as a desolate and apocalyptic image of the world inhabited by Daedra and immortal suffering ghosts called soul-shriven. It is described as a manifestation of fear and exploitation. It's also ruled over by Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination, and that's all I'm gonna say about him. In case you didn't know, Molag Bal is the ultimate vibe killer in the Elder Scrolls. His lore is full of awful shit that's honestly uncalled for in a goofy little video game. Look up how the first vampire was made in the Elder Scrolls and it will probably ruin your night. Haha, happy silly little video game. Next afterlife, please. Alright, so we're getting close to the end. This one's pretty simple. The Dmer were actually agnostic and didn't believe in any afterlife. Some people think that's the explanation as to why there's no burial chambers in their cities. But yeah, they were people of science, not people of faith. You know what, while we're at it, if you guys would be interested in a video on like what happened to the Dmer or something like that, I would love to do research for that because like I'm really curious. Woo! Last one, the werewolves. Any werewolf who lives their life by Hircine will spend the rest of their days on the hunting grounds where they can enjoy the thrill of the hunt forever. There is, however, a possibility of an afterlife change if the person's lycanthropy is cured after they died. For example, if the werewolf was a Nord and he was cured after he died, he would go from Hircine's hunting grounds to Sovngarde. And finally, That's it. I'm gonna be honest. When I started this, I didn't know I was gonna cover 16 different afterlives. There's a couple I probably missed. Now that I think about it, I didn't talk about the soul cairn. It's where all the souls go when you kill somebody and trap them in a soul gem. That's about it for that one. Also, since you stayed this long, you want to see a little sneak peek of what I'm wearing on the bottom half? Ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing because it's free and you can always change your mind later. I really love doing these videos and I'd hope to maybe one day get the audience I'm looking for, so here's to hoping. If you even want to see me succeed a little bit, please consider sharing this with a friend because the algorithm is kind of mean sometimes. Watch the skies and I'll see you in the next video.